Good evening. Good evening. Let me make sure my mic is on. Yes. Good evening. How is everyone doing on this Wednesday night? I was thinking about coming last night, but I was like, let me stick to Wednesday night because last week we did Wednesday and it just felt right. All right. So, anyway, thank you for joining me. Thank you, thank you, thank you. Um, Tonight is an interesting night because this topic didn't come from out of thin air or a question someone asked me, but it actually came from a conversation. So before I get into how it got here, let me just tell you if this live is for you and if it is, what you will get out of it. As you see, this is called Deserving Better in a Relationship. And this is going to help you, this mindset, right? Because when we talk about healing from toxic relationships, being able to move on, it's all about mindset, right? There's no magic pill. Even things that you can do, actions that you can take, it starts with the way we think in our mind, right? Our mindset, our perspective on what we've experienced, our perspective on relationships, our perspective on boundaries. And healing, I always say, is not just about feeling better. It's also about evolving. At least that's the approach that I take for myself and with clients, right? It's about evolving. It's about growing, right? So the mindset and the perspective as you're healing to evolve to the point where you understand what better is for you. Okay, so if you are still in a toxic situation or you've gotten out and you're struggling or you're somewhere in between, this message tonight is for you to get your pen and paper. Get your pen and paper. If you're watching the replay, pause it, get your pen and paper because this mindset is going to allow you to either get out of the toxic situation that you're in. And then once you're out, it's going to help you to stay out, right? And if you're already out, it's going to help you to minimize that phase of ruminating, right? Because a lot of times people think that getting out of the relationship and then it's over. No, not only is there aftermath with the person, because usually they're still trying to reel you back in, but there's also an aftermath of your psychological state, right? Your mindset. And that is that's my purpose, right? That is what I work on with clients, is to be able to shift that mindset because there's still work to be done once the relationship ends. So in tonight's live, you're going to learn that. You're going to learn how your perspective on what you deserve can transform your life, right? And yes, that sounds cliche, transform your life, but it does, because it's not just about, listen, toxic relationship healing is not just about feeling better. It's not just about ending the relationship and then feeling better. No, like I said, it's about evolving, okay? Evolving into a wiser, new version of yourself to where you will never fear being stuck in another toxic relationship again, because you are now evolved to another level, right? And I'll take it a step further. It's also about the next generation. That's something we have to think about as adults. It's not just about us. There are children watching, there are young adults watching us, right? And when we talk about, family trauma, generational trauma, generational dysfunction, the way you handle yourself in all aspects of your life, but in this case, we're talking about relationships, that impacts the next generation, right? So this is deeper than you. So let me just get into quickly the story, how this came up. I was talking to a friend that suddenly made a change in her life. She moved, she made some major changes, and she was just expressing to me how peaceful she felt, right? Her environment before was not that peaceful. There were ups and downs, but she just didn't feel settled. She didn't feel at ease. And now where she is, she feels at peace. She feels creative now, more creative than before. And I was just telling her, like, I'm so happy to hear that. You deserve that. Like, we all deserve to have peace in our lives. And she paused and she said, you know what, you're right. I do deserve that. And the way she responded, and I don't know if she noticed this, I'll have to ask her after this live. I don't know if she noticed, but I noticed that sometimes people do catch themselves like, you're right, I do deserve more, right? And I think sometimes people are not thinking about that. So that got me to think about when I was coming out. So if you were new to me, I was in a toxic romantic relationship, and then after that I also had to deal with toxic family relationships that had been toxic but it pretty much hit the climax. So I was hit from all angles, unfortunately. Well, fortunately also, because it's better to live in truth than in denial, right? So where was I going with that? So as I was coming out of the toxic romantic relationship, towards the end of it, right? Towards the end of me breaking things off, I kept repeating to myself, I do not deserve this. I'm not, this is not my life. I'm not meant for this mess. Because while there were tons of red flags throughout the 10-year relationship, towards the end, there was a matter of infidelity. And I had always said, I am not the type of woman that is going to chase after another woman, and try to attack her and chastise her because she's with my partner. Like, I have a commitment to that partner. If you allow someone else in our relationship to sabotage it, I will let you both be. Right? I will cry my eyes out, whatever it is, but I will let you both be. I refuse to be someone to fight and argue with another woman, right? Because my relationship is not with you. That's always been my mindset. So towards the end of the relationship, when I was ending things, I remember kept saying to myself, I do not deserve this. Like, this is not my life. Like, this is some TV show, this is not me. Nailah's not going to be arguing with anyone. Nailah's not going to be fighting anyone. Nailah's not going to be begging anyone. Like, I do not deserve this. Like, after everything that I put into this, and I just kept repeating it to myself. And I think even the repetition in itself helped to confirm I have to go. Like, this is beneath me. This is beneath me. And I think that was a major tool for me to get out and to not miss it, right? That's another thing about adopting that mindset that I deserve better. Because again, I've seen women, and let me know here in the comments, even if you're watching the replay, put a 1 if you say, yes, I'm out of the relationship, or I've been out of the relationship, but I either still miss the person, or I still wonder, did I make the right decision to go? Or, I'm still thinking about all the things that we went through. Like, you still feel you're physically out, but you're still mentally stuck, right? I believe adopting that mindset of I deserve better will free you of that. It will free you of that, because you realize, although you wanted this to work, you realize this person cannot give you what you deserve. And they're putting you in a position that is beneath you. They're putting you in a position that is making you tolerate nonsense, right? Things that you don't deserve, situations that you don't deserve. Right? I am someone, I do not like conflict. Now, if conflict comes to me, I don't mind handling it. That's also my personality. But I prefer not to even have to go there, right? So if you put me in a position where I have to be in conflict, right, and I have to be stressed, and you're bringing problems to my life. I want people that brings peace to my life, right? So that is the mindset that we're going to talk about today. And just for a moment, again, if you're watching the replay, I want you to ask yourself, like, where do I stand right now with what do I deserve? Right? And now we're going into the topic of standards. And that's something I go into heavily in my program, the Relationship Detox. If you are interested in learning more about that, click in the description box below. But that is one of the classes that I teach, is about your standards. Your standards. Now, there's reasons that people have a hard time adopting the mindset that you deserve better. We're going to get into that in a little bit. But I want you to, before we get into that and you start trying to figure out where do you stand with that, just ask yourself, like, where are my standards? What do I believe I deserve? And I say that because so often I believe that people are getting into relationships without even really being clear for themselves about what are their standards, right? Even for myself, I had an idea of what I wanted and what I didn't want, but I wasn't as clear as I am now, right? And of course, if you have to make a list, you can't pinpoint everything, but there should be some general categories of what's important to you, right? As far as the way that you're treated, as far as the caliber of character of the person that you're dealing with, right? So that goes back to standards, because you have to say, this is the type of person I deserve in my life. If this is what I'm bringing, if I'm trying to be the best version of myself, I expect you to be the best version of yourself. And I think very often, if women have to be honest, and I'm speaking to women in general, if a man is watching this, it can apply to you as well. But I believe a lot of times women realize, if they're honest with themselves, that they are giving more than they're getting back. They're working more on themselves than the partner is, right? So that goes back to, do you deserve that, right? So let's just get into a couple reasons of why you might struggle. So if you realize that you do not have that mindset that I deserve better, let's figure out what are some reasons that it's hard for you to adopt that mindset, right? The first reason I want to point at is your upbringing, what you were raised around. A lot of who we are as adults goes back to our first relationships, what we were first exposed to in our childhood. And some of it is conscious, we're aware of it, and some of it is subconscious, we're not aware of it, right? And that is where, the healing, there in the healing journey, those are some things that you have to work on, whether you work on it by yourself or with a coach or with a counselor, right? You have to work on, what happened in my past, what was I exposed to, what was considered normal, that is allowing me now to not have higher standards for myself, where I cannot adopt the mindset that I deserve better. So there's a few environments during your childhood that can relate to that. So I'm just going to throw out a few, so maybe that can jog your memory. One is if you were taught that you were not good enough. If you were taught, whether they said it to you openly or they treated you in a certain way where you never felt good enough, you will then go into relationships expecting to not be good enough. So you settle, right? You don't have high standards because you feel like, well, I'm not good enough anyway. And that can come from something as general as neglect, right? Not really being given much attention. And it can be something as severe as some type of abuse, sexual abuse, physical abuse, right? That you interpret yourself as not being good enough. So now you're not looking for enough from a romantic relationship. Another example of how your environment during your childhood can contribute to you not setting higher standards, is, and this relates to me personally, to be transparent, is you were taught that loyalty is more important than anything else, right? Being loyal to your partner is more important than anything else. And being loyal is important, but nothing should be more important than being respected, right? So even though I thought I had high standards for myself, I did prioritize the loyalty, right? And making it work, and that being a noble thing, right? So it was hard for me at one point to adopt that mindset that I deserve better, right? Because I felt like I'm doing the right thing, I'm being loyal, and eventually they'll level up. That's a mistake. The next reason that it might be hard for you to adopt that mindset that you deserve better is that maybe not only in your childhood, but maybe in your adult life, you bought into the message that you were given that you're asking for too much. So when we're talking about toxic relationships, a lot of times these people have some type of manipulative personality, and they will try to convince you, either overtly or subliminally, they will try to convince you that you're asking for too much. So even if you start to hint that you feel like you should be treated better, they will somehow, again, either openly or covertly, they will imply that you're asking for too much. Like, who do you think you are? Or it's no big deal that I said it this way, or it's no big deal that I did this. You're being too much. You're being bougie. You're being this. You're being that, right? And the best thing you can do for yourself is be sure about what you're asking for. Stand firm in what you're asking for. Don't let anyone convince you that you're asking for too much. If what I'm asking for is too much for you, then you don't have what it takes to be with me. right? Now, I know that might be hard for some of you to say, and we're going to go into some of the obstacles that comes up once you do adopt the mindset of I deserve better. But you have to be willing to say, you don't have the capacity to meet me where I need you to meet me. Okay? So these are just some of the reasons. And again, I encourage you to do some of this thought process on your own. And if you have any questions, you can ask in the comments here, or you can send me a DM on Instagram. In the description box below, there's my Instagram link as well. But let me know where you stand with this, where you feel like, do I really deserve better? Now, we're talking about how to adopt the mindset of I deserve better, right? Because that will free you. That will free you from a toxic relationship. And if you're already out, that will also free you from missing them, from wanting the relationship to work, to being confused, or even if you know you made the right decision to go, to ruminating about them because you understand that you made a mistake. I made a mistake. I wish I didn't, but I did. And I understand that I deserve better, right? And I'm healing, which means I'm evolving and I'm working on myself to understand two things. These are the two things I focus on with my clients or in my course. How did I get here? What is the mindset that I had that got me in this toxic relationship? What kept me here? And three things, what part of my mindset do I need to shift to make sure that I don't end up here again, right? That I don't attract the same type of person again, okay? So once you do that processing, you think about, do I deserve better or not? Then I want us to tap in a little bit to, say we do get to the point where, okay, I have adopted a mindset. I know I deserve better, but there's always a but, right? But I don't want to be alone. I feel lonely. But how long is it going to take? I know I deserve better, but how long is it going to take for me to get another partner? I know I deserve better, but at my age, can I really find someone else? I know I deserve better, but I have kids. Who's going to want me with kids? I know I deserve better, but I don't want to raise these kids alone, right? There's so many different buts, right? So these are the things that you want to tap into. And when we talk, like I always said, I don't want to just bring information here to you, but as you start to identify, where do you fall? What is your but? Right? What is your but? I know I deserve better now. Okay, Nailah, I get it. I know I deserve better. I deserve better. I deserve better. I don't deserve this mess. I don't deserve this chaos. I don't deserve this chaos in my life. But what is your but? Okay. There's different ways to approach those different buts, but there's one solution that I believe can cover all areas, and that is not being desperate. Not being desperate and having faith. Not being desperate because you fear being alone, you fear, who's going to want me with kids. Being desperate is the worst thing you can do for yourself. Okay? You have to be willing to be alone. You have to be willing to try and do it with the kids by yourself, or create a new support system. But you cannot settle for a toxic situation. You cannot settle for in and out, right? Because a lot of times I hear, oh, I left, but we're still connected somehow, right? You are contributing to time being wasted, and you are blocking yourself from being able to meet a healthy person and have a healthy, happy relationship. That is something a lot of people don't realize. I'm just going to hold on to this until something else comes by. Nothing else is going to come by because you are occupied with that. And they know that, which is why they keep reeling you back in, because they know if someone gets a hold of you and you see what it's like to actually have a healthy, happy relationship, they know they're out, and they're out for good. So they're going to keep you occupied. From a spiritual aspect, as I always say, I didn't make this up, but I heard it and I stick with it. God cannot bless a mess. You cannot pray to God asking him for help, but you're still keeping yourself in the mess. It just doesn't work. Okay? So whatever your but is, yes, I know I deserve better, but whatever your but is, take some time to, one, identify what your but or multiple buts are, and then start to address that. But if you approach it with the letting go of the desperation and having faith, that's a great place to start. And if you have any other questions, you can, like I said, you can put it in the comments here below. If you're watching this replay, and or you can email me, or you can contact me in the DMs on Instagram. The Instagram link is in the description box below. I hope this message tonight blesses you. Like I said, I realize that is something a lot of times women are not thinking about. What do I deserve? A lot of times we're just getting into relationships. We don't have standards, or we are desperate. And that is dangerous. Manipulative people also sense desperation. They see it. And they're not looking at how pretty you are, how nice your shape is, how successful you are in your career or your business, how much money you have, how much status you have. They can sense insecurity and desperation. And the superficial things like money and looks and status doesn't mean that you're not desperate. And it doesn't mean that there aren't some insecurities there. And that's not to insult you. That's just to help you to realize, like, wow, this is true, because you're settling. You don't need to settle. You do deserve better. You can have better, but you have to, one, identify that I'm willing to be alone, and understand that there are seasons in our lives where we do have to be alone. Sometimes in order to work on ourselves, we have to be alone. I remember after my romantic relationship, and then which led to toxic romantic relationship, which then led to end of toxic family relationship, I was a mess. You probably couldn't see it on the outside, but internally I was distraught. And if I were to get into or try to get into a serious relationship after that, I would have sabotaged it. It took me time to work on myself. It took me time to analyze and figure out, how did I get there? Like, I'm a smart woman. How did I end up here? A lot of women that I work with, that I talk to, you all are smart women. You're doing great things for yourself, right? But you end up in these situations. That's not a coincidence. It's not a coincidence for me. It's not a coincidence for you. It's not a coincidence that statistically, I believe a lot of women are smart women that still end up in these situations. There's a reason for it. Right? So healing is not just about feeling better, but it's about identifying those three things, which is what I work on. Is how did I get here? What was going on in my mind where I can make good decisions in other parts of my life, but when it came to a relationship or relationships, I'm making these poor decisions and I'm tolerating this type of behavior and treatment, right? Or I'm making excuses for it, right? And I'm feeling desperate, right? What kept me there so long? Because a lot of times these relationships are long-term relationships. And now, okay, what parts of me, because you don't have to change all of you. That's a big mistake a lot of people make. I'm going to be mean. I'm going to be hard. I'm going to be cold. Nobody's going to hurt me again. No, don't be that person. That's not good either, right? But there are certain parts of us that we need to tweak to make sure you don't end up there again, right? So that is the work that has to be done. That is part of healing. Okay. If you want support around that, I have a few different options on how to work with me. They're all in the description box below. If you have any questions about any of them, you can always, like I said, DM me on Instagram, post a comment here, or email me. Again, I hope this message blesses you. Y'all have a great night. Thank you so much for joining me. See you soon.